Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Talk Scottish Football Live. It is Friday the 28th of May. I'm joined by Callum Craig, shortly to be joined by Ryan Fitzsimons as we discuss the news that Peter Grant has been confirmed as the new Celtic Manager. No, I wish. I was going to do a show tonight about Peter Grant comes to Dunfermline, but, Eddie Howe, Callum. Yeah, not ideal.
Nah, most definitely is not. I mean, as I was saying just before we came on this, we also went for lunch for the space of me leaving you at George Square, into Queen Street Station, sitting on my train. It had been announced that it wasn't coming. I'm like, how in such a short space of time? Quite literally, how? But
I know. Every time I say the word how now, I feel like I have to clarify I'm not deliberately doing it. It's absolutely fucking mental. We were in tune today and my phone died, so I missed all this. Got a phone call off Ryan. I was working with Stephen. He phoned Stephen saying, "Can you get David to get me the codes for stream yards? I can go and stream." I was like, "Why?" Eddie Howe's not coming to Celtic. I was like, "Oh my fucking god, surely fucking not." After 3 months of it being near enough a done deal, all these reasons as to why it hadn't been announced yet, whether it was the Bournemouth coaching team, whether it was his gardening leave, whether it was anything, it was just the most dead cert in football that it was happening. It was just a matter of time. And then this morning, there seemed to be a few things floating about early this morning that something was up. I got a voice note sent to me from someone who basically said it was off, and I was like, nah, no way, not having that. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it's not happening. Stephen McGowan from Daily Mail broke the news. It was the main reason that he's given is that Eddie Howe couldn't assemble the backroom team that he wanted. It sounds like Celtic said give him free rein. He literally just couldn't get who he wanted, which is interesting consider at the start of the week Peter Grant was going to Celtic and ends up at Dunfermline. I honestly wonder if that had a slight part in what happened there, but we will no doubt know more in the coming days. But it's back to square one, Callum. This is just fucking mad.
See, the thing that gets me is like I put a tweet up about half an hour ago or so, and I says, how can it be that we're in advanced talks already with a new manager? That if that's the case, surely this deal's been dead in the water for a few weeks. Why have they not just come out and said it if they're already in advanced talks with somebody else? It's just a matter of who is the next person. Yeah,
if they're in advanced talks with somebody, there's no way they've in an hour and a half this afternoon got somebody in. So they must have had an inclination that. I mean, I'm not going to credit them for saying they were smart enough to have a backup plan, because the Celtic board don't deserve any fucking credit for anything just now. But they obviously, the news is they're in advanced talks with somebody. Nobody seems to know who that is. There's some mad rumours flying about. Favre, who was at Dortmund, seems to be the big name that's flying about. I don't know what kind of substance there is to that rumour, if it's just a name. No doubt Roy Keane's name will be flying about. Ryan literally just said to me, someone's saying Sam Allardyce is in for it. It's absolutely mad. No doubt it'll be John Kennedy, you'd have thought, but Darren Muir, who's saying he's just in, is he signing for them? Darren, I've got some news for you, mate. You might want to have a seat. It's not happening. And just as we're running here, I'd just like to warmly welcome to TSF Live on Friday the 28th of May to react to the news, Mr. Ryan Fitzsimons. Good evening, mate. How you doing?
Hello, how you doing? Liquidate Dunfermline Athletic is the message I come into the stream with tonight.
Mad Pedro Grant's fucking causing it.
How we all doing, And as you have already said, I'm not deliberately wanting to use the word how.
See,
what we're here to talk about. Yep, that is. Yep. Look, listen, I've already been live. People who have already seen the stream that I've done on my channel will know a lot of my thoughts. But I'm here to try and dissect as much as we possibly can from the news that's been broke. As you've already alluded to, David, there was a feeling in the air this morning. And we've spoke about this. Both of us, before we came in the air in the living room, were talking about this. There was a feeling in the air that something was going to go wrong. Even before these rumours started circulating. I sat down. I went to see my dad today. My dad said, "Is there any news for Celtic Park yet? Are we getting how? What's happening?" I said, "I have a feeling that something's going to go wrong." And, I didn't think it would be to the extent as what we've seen today. I thought it would maybe be a bump, maybe a bit of delay. I did not expect the whole deal to be off. And as I've already said, I hope there's one final twist in the tail, but by all accounts, it's looking like it's over.
It's over. The game is over. Nobody's won.
Nobody's won.
Apart from maybe John Kennedy, he might have won. If I don't even. We were just saying there. I mean, they've obviously. Cal made a good point. They're in advanced talks with somebody. So, according to Stephen McGowan, now, if that's the case, then they must have known for a wee while now he wasn't coming. and maybe it's just taking this time for the news to break. You don't get to advanced talks in the space of like an hour and a half this afternoon. But the fact that there is next to no rumour, no concrete rumour on who they may be in advanced talks with, makes me think there is another couple of weeks left in this yet. But Callum, like literally, even as a fan base, it's kind of hard to get behind anyone else now, because even at this point, the Eddie Howe stuff was getting a bit boring. People just wanted it done. You know, the enthusiasm was gone.
I think it was like, also it did seem as if we'd put all our eggs in one basket, as if it is how it's there, it's done. It's just a matter, obviously, we're all waiting for his coaching staff to be done, also that stuff, and then whatever's happened there has fell through, whether it's family issues, so we've seen apparently family issues down south with some of the coaching staff, whether it's just he couldn't get his proper coaching staff in, whatever it was to be. It's just baffling that the fact that, as you said, it just seems so deflated now. Like, it was just at a stage, like, just get him announced, just get him in and just get on with it.
Yeah.
There's no, it's like, back to, as you put it, back to step one, you're like, where do we go for here?
Celtic have certainly shot themselves in the foot. That's the situation here. Wednesday morning, we were presented with a statement to encourage fans to buy a season ticket, which was already bad enough without having a manager in place. But in that same statement, they said that they were hoping to have the manager announced shortly. Now, unless in the space of 48 hours, even less than 48 hours, Eddie Howe has dramatically changed his view from then. Look, I don't think that this is a 2-day thing. I don't think Eddie Howe has been along there with that statement going, I'll still take the job. I think they've known this. And that would be further backed up by the apparent leaks that they were giving out to the fan media, other members of the media, that they've known about this for more than, the last couple of hours. They've known that this was going to happen. So when they say in that statement, they hope that a manager's announced shortly, for two reasons they've shot themselves in the foot. Number one, what if it's not shortly? They're going to be backtracking on everything that they've said in that statement. They're going to be keeping fans waiting longer when we've been told that it should be a matter of time. They've quite literally came out and said that themselves. The other reason is, number one, the fanfare of Eddie Howe died for a lot of fans weeks ago because it's taken so long. We're coming up for 100 days without a managerial appointment. So they've shot themselves in the foot there with the Eddie Howe fanfare. But now, how do you appoint a manager who is at the same level as Eddie Howe? I've already said this in my stream. For me, there's no better option out there than Eddie Howe that is realistically available at the minute. There are very few options, limited options, that can be the same sort of blockbuster appointment as Eddie Howe. We all thought it was going to be him. So now whoever comes in, it feels like it just kind of pales itself in comparison to that appointment. So what does Celtic do? Do they try and break the bank? I'll come on to this maybe later on when we talk about who this other candidate is. There's only less than a handful of names for me that will satisfy the majority of Celtic fans. And even at that, will it with the manner that this has happened? I don't know.
Yeah, it's mad. I don't think it's going to take a massive blockbuster name to even get the fans back on side now. And even then, I'm not convinced they will do. Just quickly, the chat is going very, very fast. We're busy in here. So I'm probably missing loads of your comments. If anyone wants to ask us a question and also support the channel, feel free to super chat. We are gearing towards a studio and other things for the Euros, especially try to build the content. So that is one way to guarantee your question won't be missed. Moving on. Well, I mean, where do we even go from here, Callum? I mean, literally, the whole season has been an absolute shambles. The communication, and Ryan made a good point there about how they leaked stuff to fan media. Their, channels of communication all season have been shambolic throughout this whole, fiasco with Lennon and Kennedy and everything. Even the season ticket stuff. It's like Celtic are not wanting to face the music. They are, back channeling everything. And even like the Eddie Howe stuff initially, you can guarantee there was guys who had Peter Lawwell on the phone saying, listen, we've got Eddie Howe, we think this is what's happening. They'll have been feeding the media, and now they need to face the music. But at the moment, there's no one at Celtic taking responsibility for any of this.
No, see, personally, I still don't feel there will be, especially over the next coming days. I don't feel like anybody will come out, if it has to be Dom McCarrat, to come out with an actual statement and say, right, this is what's happened. Give the fans a bit of background knowledge so we're not still sitting in the dark as to what's happened with this deal. It'd be good to get a bit of clarity to say why it fell through or what the reasoning was behind it. Or even see if they give us a name to who we're pursuing towards. Like something that gives the fans that bit of roping them back in. It's like a prime example, all the films that were supposed to come out last year never came out, and they're just trying to blast it all out there and just give you as much as you can so you're enticed by it again. Yeah. You need to give the fans something massive for them to get back on side, I think.
And I said it to you, Ryan, before we started. Celtic have got a busy summer anyway. Literally, they're supposed to go back for pre-season. Was it 17th of June?
Yep. We've already organised our pre-season camp. We've got our friendlies organised. We're playing 5 English teams, some of the Championship, one of the Premier League, which is asking for an embarrassment. I know that friendly matches don't necessarily mean a lot, but you still want to be in. You still want to have a bit of enthusiasm after them. I don't see that happening. My question is what is Dominic Mackay up to? He's been given the worst possible start as the Chief Executive Officer of Celtic. I know he's not officially started his role. I believe that's July 1st. I thought it was June 1st originally. I believe it's July 1st. But we were told that at this fan forum last week that he was taking a step to modernise the football club on and off the park. We were told that there was going to be changes. And basically, I think that Celtic fans bought into this belief that he was going to be polar opposites from Peter Lawwell. Now, I know Peter Lawwell is still in charge of the club, and maybe that's why we're seeing a lot of these backward moves. This is our, Ryan McGinley put it nicely. This is so outdated, the way we're going about things. We are archaic. We're just very behind the trend. You look at Dunfermline, you took 8 days to appoint a manager. Now, I know it's not simple to go out and get a manager and appoint them straight away. I know it's not as cut and dry as that. It's very
but just quickly, before you continue that point, people will laugh at that comparison, but from what I heard in that press conference this morning, Dunfermline identified him as the target, went out and got it done. So there was no fanning around. It was just, it got done. Now I realise it's a much bigger task when you're at Celtic, but if you're taking months and months and months to get a guy over the line, you've got to just say, right, this is not working. We need to go somewhere else.
Yeah, and that's what worries me about this plan B. Now, we're talking about advanced talks, but how long have these talks been going on for? How long has he been identified as plan B? And is it a suitable plan B? Is it just the rush of not getting Howe? Has it been thought through? There's so many questions to be brought up about it. I don't want it to be an appointment that we look back on in 6 months and go, wow, that was the panic of not getting Howe that came to this moment, and now we're in a terrible situation. Dominic Mackay really has landed himself in a horrible position here. People are unhappy. People were unhappy last week after that fan forum. Now, I know a lot of people in the chat just now are not Celtic fans. They will not be on top of what has been happening at these fan forums. They probably won't see. But by all accounts, that fan forum looked to be a disaster. Fans were not happy. The people who attended it said it was very worrying. There was no positives, really. The slight positives was Mackay saying he wanted to modernise the club. And by this article breaking today, it would say, by all means, that it is the complete opposite direction of modernising a football club. Because we are so far behind everyone.
The thing is, when the job became available initially, the 3 names were Eddie Howe, Enzo Maresca, and Roy Keane. Roy Keane was interviewed, I'm led to believe, as I'd imagine would have been Enzo Maresca. So they were the 3. Now, none of those 3 are going to be Celtic manager. So there are 3 initial targets.
Maresca's away with Sampdoria.
Exactly. Now, surely they're not going to go back in for Keane after already interviewing him. I mean, the place would just be an absolute... Imagine the riots if Roy Keane got that job now, as much as I think it'd be entertaining as fuck. But that's not going to happen. So your 3 main targets are now not going to be Celtic manager. So I feel for Dominic Mackay a little bit, Callum, because obviously he's not yet officially in the role. He's still got Peter Lawwell there. You'd imagine he'll be shadowing Peter Lawwell, trying to sort of learn bits and pieces, find out what's happening. Albeit he has had a say in this, he is going to take a brunt of the criticism for it. And I'm not entirely convinced that's fair yet, because he's not really had the chance to sort of make his mark as of yet.
Sorry, Callum, I cut you off. Just to clarify, it was Parma that Enzo Maresca's away to Parma, not Sampdoria.
Parma.
I think, as you're saying, he's still just sort of getting his foot in the door. So it would be very harsh if he is to be, as you said, put the brunt of this, to be hit with the worst part of it. Because again, he's still just shadowing Lawwell there. He's still just learning, but to say easing himself in. I think it'll be a very, very interesting the day Lawwell leaves, and it's basically put into Dom Mackay if fans will be constantly howling him for stuff. When are we getting this? When are we getting that?
Best thing he could do was come out tonight and speak to and put something out. Yeah. If he faced the music tonight,
But what I'm worried about is the fact that Peter Lawwell's not leaving Celtic. He's leaving his role as Chief Executive Officer. He is still on the Celtic board. Now, to me, with this whole fiasco with Eddie Howe, really worries me that there will not be a lot of change at Celtic. We won't get that head-to-toe renovation that we thought we were going to get. I'm worried that we're still going to have these guys who've been on the board for 10, 20, 30 years pulling the strings, and Dominic Mackay is just there to be the face of it rather than the guy who makes the big calls.
Yeah,
that's what worries me.
It's a test of Dominic Mackay's got a sort of character, because I mean he did it at the SRU. He went in and he changed it. He made them, he transformed the SRU. He's got the capability to do that. But I get what you're saying in that if Peter Lawwell's still in the background making a noise, how much can you really move forward? And you've still got all the guys who are part of the problem there. And it's the same with like football teams themselves. If you've got a team and you've got 5 players who are part of a problem under another manager, you kind of sometimes need to just freshen everything up. So I don't know. But the communication's been absolutely shocking. It doesn't look like that's going to change anytime soon. And by the way, if you thought season ticket sales were going to be slow this week, they're going to slow down even fucking more next week now. I mean, Callum, people are not going to be parting with 600 quid next week when there's no manager, no new players, no clarity, no communication, nothing to be positive about.
Nah, personally, I don't see myself running next week whatsoever at this rate. I think until, as you said, until we have some form of information, we know what's going on, we have communication with the board and other members, it's just an absolute shit show. I mean, it has been this full season, but that's just has Benny Hill written all over it.
Look, my problem is that there is far too many people in the support, and I hate feeling like I have to launch an attack on supporters, but I'll say it time and time again, there are too many people who have already launched their money into renewing their season tickets, blindly accepting that it's good to suck up to the club, and it's good to be, they follow those words over and over. We will follow you, and it sticks to them. And look, you're the bad guy. You're the bad guy for not putting your money into Celtic. Celtic have treated the fans like, second grade scum at points this season. We've seen statement after statement that has, basically told us to pipe down when we're trying to look out for the best of the club. But some fans don't accept that. Some fans don't accept that you're allowed to look out for the club by calling out the negatives. This is another one that piles into them today. And I can fathom no way and how I will right now pour £500 into Celtic Football Club without a manager, without a vision of where we're going, and perhaps with a second best option who was never really considered. Because it's not, as you've said, David, it's not going to be Keane. It's not going to be Maresca. And I'll come on to this soon. 3 names. And there's 3 names for me, 3 of them, that can be this Celtic manager that builds up to the same sort of level and ambition as Eddie Howe. Do I think Celtic are going to get any of these 3 names? Absolutely not.
Yeah, I know, it's a shit show. The worst thing for me is, just totally from a neutral point of view, is I've been so fed up hearing about Eddie Howe for the last 3 months. I thought, well, at least now it'll get done. We'll have the Euros, we'll all just get. And now we're just gonna have another fucking.
You're saying that from a neutral point of view. How do you think the fans feel, man? We had our heart set on it. I had my heart set on it. And look, I've said there's a lot of Rangers fans here, and we were talking about this, and I appreciate giving my point across. And as I said, I'm here to just give an opinion as a Celtic fan. Time and time again throughout my videos on the channel, I've been saying if Eddie Howe is to be the next Celtic manager, because it was looking like Eddie Howe was to be the next Celtic manager. I always allowed that wiggle room for things to go wrong. But at the end of the day, we can't deny the majority of us were totally expecting it to be Howe. One way or another, it was going to be him. Mm-hmm. For it to break down at this stage is it's up there with PR disaster of the year.
What's absolutely mad is that every single major media outlet in this country, every single respectable, reputable sports journalist in this country reported all for the last few months it was going to be Eddie Howe. There was no one offering a differing opinion here at all, which comes back to what I said earlier about Celtic briefing the media. Celtic were obviously putting this out there. They've obviously got the contacts saying, right, that was their way of reassuring the fans before they had it signed. Now they're trying because what's mad? 2 months ago they couldn't give a shit about fan media. 3 months ago they had nothing to do with it. But now, when they're not facing the music themselves, they're using fan media to fucking brief supporters. It's absolutely mental. And you said earlier about the whole, faithful through and through nonsense and all that carry on, and people will not criticise the club. The club will use that because they know fine well, they can, to certain people, the idea of Celtic fans sticking together through thick and thin and all that works. But they take people for granted. And the thing is now, the majority of fans, well, maybe not the majority, well, actually, yeah, probably, are now saying, Callum, yous are fucking at it. We're not here to be taken for granted. You need to fucking step up and sort it out.
I think it's just one of those. It'll be interesting to see who does step up and sort of take control of it. In terms of the background staff, who is going to come out and say, right, this is what the plan is going forward. Obviously, we had plan A, how it didn't work. This is plan B. Comes out and, as I said, feeds the fans information to say they want to carry a sign. A few months ago, they couldn't give a fuck what they were feeding it to the fans. They could not care less what they're feeding it. And then now, because they need the season book money, They need fans coming through the doors. They need all the backing they can get. They'll just throw it anything they can to sort of feed the fans, keep them happy.
Yeah,
well, that's one point I'll maybe give to Dominic Mackay though. If you have to look at it and flip it to a positive manner, maybe that is one of the changes that Dominic Mackay's made. We have been hearing that he's been very much wanting to push on this fan media stuff and get them involved and getting a voice for the fans and keeping them informed. Maybe that is that, but once again, you can't look past it. Perhaps they are doing it to save faces in certain ways.
Yeah, it's mental. Just quickly before we come back onto this, 450 people in this chat, which is unbelievable. Everybody's here. Can you drop us a sub? That'll be absolute class. I can't keep up with this chat. If anybody wants to get a question in, fire us a chat.
Can I pose a question?
Meet your question.
Can I pose a question to the host, and then once again I'll pose it to Callum as well. It's just I've not had time to really kind of gather my thoughts towards this and try and make a decision because there's not enough concrete sort of information out there to base a decision off. We are hearing, as you've already said at the top of the show, that the reason that this has fallen through is because Eddie Howe couldn't get his backroom staff. Now, that could be Peter Grant, that could be whoever Stone purchased, Richard Hughes, all from down in Bournemouth, for a number of reasons. There has been no concrete reason given as to what side of the fence let them down. I've been hearing rumours it's because they didn't want to come north. I've also been hearing rumours it's because Celtic didn't make the move, aka Peter Grant is now at Dunfermline. Did they not do enough to make the move happen?
This is the mental thing, right? So at the start of the week, the news broke that Eddie Howe still wanted to take Peter Grant to Celtic. That was fine. The news at the same time broke that Peter Grant was Dunfermline's favourite choice for the job. Now, we had 5 days from Peter Grant being the man that was going to get the Dunfermline job to him being announced. Throughout that time, it was, right, is he picking us or Celtic? That seemed to be pretty much what the thing was. Now, Bournemouth staff, there was a member of Bournemouth staff who, after the playoff game, had tweeted that they were looking forward to our next adventure. The staff were going on their next adventure. It was all rumoured that after the playoff, the Bournemouth staff were coming up the road. So that doesn't seem to have been in doubt. What we know is that at the start of the week, it was rumoured Peter Grant was joining Eddie Howe at Celtic. He's now not. We also know the reason given today is that he couldn't get the backroom team he assembled. Not Celtic wouldn't get it. He couldn't get it. Now, putting 2 and 2 together, that seems to be an obvious thing. Now, for as much as that is a funny story for me to have, the idea of Eddie Howe not taking the job just because he couldn't get Peter Grant, I'm not totally sure I'm having that. But again, we've heard throughout this process that those two had been close, they'd been talking, he was involved right from the start. And Peter Grant himself this morning on the press conference, as his unveiling, referenced Eddie Howe and why the rumours had come about. So it's very interesting. I'm sure we'll hear more about this in the coming days.
So that's my question to you. Do you think that is more so? Brendan Rodgers left Celtic Football Club because he didn't get the tools he needed to take the club where he visioned them going. He had enough to go and win league titles. He had the money there to spend on players to domestically succeed. He wanted more than that. He wanted his own coaches. He wanted his own players. We missed out on John McGinn, for example. We were forced to sign Yusuf Malumbu from Kilmarnock. You know, there was a lot of things that were done wrong that led Brendan Rodgers ultimately to leaving us for Leicester City. You know, people will like to just paint it out as he's seen the bigger job and he went. No, there was a lot more to it than that. It was because Celtic and Peter Lawwell never backed him to the extent they should have, right? So my question is, have we not learned from those mistakes? Do you think it is more along the side of Eddie Howe's not got his men and just went, you know what, fuck this, I'm away? Or do you think Celtic have got to be to blame here? They've not learned from their mistakes, they've not put the money down, and they've not backed him, even though they've apparently given him free rein. Have they backtracked on that word? Because it seems like that is very likely.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I want to get your thoughts on this as well, Callum, but all the noise has been all year long, year, it fucking feels like a year. The whole time throughout this, that he has been given free rein to do whatever he wants. Eddie Howe's the man. He brings in who he wants. They even had all the discussion about Richard Hughes coming in as the director of football. Now, here's another interesting fact, because last night the news broke that Fergal Harkin was coming close to becoming director of football. Now, I think we know that Eddie Howe would have preferred Richard Hughes for that job. That was all the noise at the start of this kind of thing. So, you know, it's an interesting one because, Callum, we're not going to know for sure, but it is very believable that maybe Celtic haven't done what they said they were going to do. But also, what we've seen this week is that, you know, the people that he wanted haven't quite been available. I suppose we just don't know, do we, really, Callum?
No, I think it's one of those ones, like, you'd love to be a fly in the wall inside that meeting to see what actually was said and how it all panned out. I think, as you said, unless someone was to come out and say in black and white, this is what happened, there you go, I don't think we ever will know the full situation as to what happened with the deal is how coming or going or in terms of director of football. We won't properly have an order of that. But I think it seems a bit weird if he was to just throw a hissy fit at it. I can't get my coaching staff. No, I'm not taking it. Like, the man's sitting out a job. Surely he would love to get back into football. So I feel like it was a bit more than just the fact that he couldn't get a few coaches.
Yeah, it's such an up and down week because, you know, I think it was Wednesday night, maybe last night, in fact, I was reading an article saying that both Frank Lampard and Eddie Howe have been ruled out of the Crystal Palace job. So when you see that, you think, oh, it's straight sailing. You know, there's no other team that's going to be coming in from. I didn't see him go. Wolves have identified their target. They want another Portuguese manager. Crystal Palace have apparently dismissed Howe. So it seems straight sailing. Then you see the news of Fergal Harkin. That gets you doubting a little bit because we know that he wanted Richard Hughes. So it's been dead up and down, and maybe that's what's led us to this point. Perhaps maybe you're right, David, in saying maybe the Fergal Harkin stuff is maybe what's turned him away from the job. Again,
just a wee interlude here. There's 598 people in here watching this, which is unbelievable. Everybody who's new, drop us a sub. Would be absolutely fantastic. And again, I can't even get through the comments, but if you drop us a super chat, we'll be sure to get your questions answered or everything for either the boys or for me from a neutral point of view. But Sharp Dev had put in the chat there. Where has it gone? He said, "What does this mean for next year's title race?" Now, before we come on to that question, we haven't even discussed like what this means in
that's a video
in
itself
sense, but we haven't even talked about what this means in a footballing sense for the Celtic team. Like, we haven't even discussed any of the players, like the squad. It's mental, that in itself. And I said this weeks and weeks ago. If Eddie Howe was appointed Celtic job, it was still going to be a massive achievement, in my opinion, for him to win this league title next season, because the gap at the moment is very big, and we're seeing that on and off the pitch. Rangers are going to get better, in my opinion. Celtic, apparently there's a statement.
Celtic have released a statement. I'm just getting up my phone right now. There's a donation. I'm going to go and read the statement. Hold on.
Okay.
Celtic Football Club, following very positive and detailed discussions with Eddie Howe, with the belief that he would be an excellent candidate for the position of Celtic manager, we allowed time for the process, given he'd previously made it clear he was not looking to return into management until this summer at the earliest. We can now confirm that Eddie will not be joining the club for reasons out with both his and Celtic's control.
It's Peter Grant.
We wish Eddie success for the future. As part of the ongoing process, we've engaged with a number of candidates. We fully appreciate our fans will be seeking clarity on this matter, and we aim very shortly to announce the appointment of a manager with the quality and desire to take Celtic forward and bring success to our supporters. So it's done now. There'll be no final twist in the tail. Eddie Howe will not be Celtic manager.
Mad Pedro Grant has caused it. That's what I'm taking from that. I can't think of what is that not what you're taking from that initially, you two? Because that's what I'm getting from it.
It screams to me. It screams to me like it might be Eddie. It might be Peter Grant. It could be, because that's out with. That is out with Celtic and Eddie Howe's control. They cannot control Peter Grant wanting to take another job. Now, if it was up to me, I'd be going to Peter, who's just taking that job, and offering them double his wages to just get this over the line. But of course, it's not as simple as that. And yeah, David, I hate your football club with a passion.
I am honestly mental. Someone had said to me this morning that he reckoned that it was because Peter Grant was not going, and I said, nah, there's no fucking way. Now, listen, I might be wrong, but that is initially what I'm taking from that. I'm interested to see what people think in the comments, what their takeaways are from that. But what I can't think of another circumstance that is out with Eddie Howe's and Celtic's control. Now, what else could that be? Unless it's Richard Hughes isn't coming, but there's been no indication
unless Eddie Howe is, not fancied to move. Maybe something's happened. There's things that could be, it could be anything. But first impressions would suggest to me that it could be the Peter Grant situation.
Callum, what are your thoughts on that statement?
Just as I was looking through this, see the fact they've said the word manager twice, so that makes me think we won't get the first team coach. So it makes me think it will just be all down to the next man to come in. I don't think there will be, I'm not saying there wouldn't be a direct football, but if they keep going with the word manager, it just seems set in a way that they won't bother with it. They'll stick the way they have been, and they'll just put one man in charge, and it's all on him. So I think most likely, it is the Peter Grant situation, but obviously only time will tell.
Well, again, listen, that is the only obvious situation, but there might be a number of things that may come out. Listen, it's a nice narrative for me to imagine. 700 people here. Everybody is new. Please drop us a sub as we head into the next month of fantastic Euros-related content. Hopefully.
That's if I'm still fucking alive and kicking after this, because Jesus Christ, it's aging me. People complain about me, or not complain. People would point out my baldness that is occurring. This is just going to speed up that process, and if not just that process, the life process for me is going to be sped up. That statement, look, part of me is like, at least Celtic have came out and gave us something. I've been asking. I put up a tweet today asking for Celtic to give us something to work with, but it's undoubtedly the most disappointing of statements that we could have expected this weekend. When we had no real choice, so they had to say something, didn't they? In the space of 2 days from going from a manager shortly to Eddie Howe is not going to be at the football club is the most disastrous of 48 hours this club has seen in a long, long time.
Just when you thought, Callum, this season couldn't get any worse, just before I actually come to you, Callum, Planet Celtic with £79. God, that would be a fucking pleasant super chat.
That'd be amazing.
Thank you very much, mate. I've missed that, so I want to give you a shout out. But and Jack Robertson's in the chat as well. Eddie Howe, RSC. The Union Jack, and a wee £1.99 from Jack. Thank you very much, mate. I'm sure you're enjoying the show.
That fucking Button boy's back.
He's back. Well, listen. He's obsessed with Scottish football for somebody who hates it so much. But
apparently the Scottish football is absolutely shite.
But all he does is sit in Scottish football shows on YouTube. It's mad. But anyway, Callum, where do you even go? It's just like when you thought that it couldn't get any worse, it's going to get worse.
I love how, can I just quickly say, I love how people are in the chat. I've seen that a few times, like, oh, Peter Grant's just went to Dunfermline, as if we don't have someone in the call who was literally at his press conference this morning. Like, we literally have someone who was there.
I was so excited to do a show tonight with some of the clips in the press conference, but now it gives a shit now. Although, I wish we could have done a press conference again. We could have grilled them a bit more about Celtic, because who knows? But yeah, Callum, on you go.
No, I think it's just been the tail of this season, really, hasn't it? It's just been one calamity after another. This just fucking rounds it off. I think you can only hope this is the full stop on it, and next season just a fresh slate all round, and just see where it goes from there.
God, I don't even know. Lewis Lever, £2 super chat. What a hero! God knows where we go from here. Even Lewis has run out of ideas and optimism, and Lewis is the most well-informed Celtic fan I know. But Lewis, at least the local players will be flying. Well, Lewis hasn't been in my ear telling me that Eddie Howe's been done for the past 3 months. So
Celtic have just confirmed there it was done, but for unforeseen circumstances, it's just collapsed. So in a way, we were right. But let's talk about what's going to happen next. A lot of people want to hear us talk about the names and talk about what is going to be next for Celtic. Now, I know you're hosting this, David, so I'll pass it to you in a moment. I am severely hoping it's not one of these names that have brought up a John Kennedy, Jack Ross. Even I've seen people saying Sam Allardyce, a Roy Keane. I hope it's none of these names. I'll come on to 3 names that I think it should be in a minute, but realistically, what's going to happen, David?
Mate, John Hughes. No, I'm joking. Fuck knows. I mean, again, the fact that Steve McGowan has said that obviously Celtic haven't briefed him on who they're in talks with. They've obviously not briefed anyone in the media, because otherwise a name would have got out there. The only names that we're seeing are literally based off fans putting 2 and 2 together. Now, I know who was the guy that resigned in Spain today? Martinez.
Diego Martinez.
Never even heard of him. But again, that name has just come up because he's resigned today.
Yep.
The Australian guy, I don't know an awful lot about. Lucien Favre makes a bit of sense in that he's been available for a while, and he's somebody that's of high caliber. But I don't know. How would he feel about being second fiddle to Eddie Howe? That's another thing.
This is the situation. This is the problem. We have now allowed ourselves to show, and there's a donation. I'll let you read it out.
Fantastic. Gavin Smith with $9.99. This is comedy gold. Cheers, boys. Well, at least Gavin's enjoying himself, eh?
Yeah.
Top man, Gavin. Thank you.
So it's a big call now, because you've got to phone up someone and go, by the way, we want you now, because Eddie Howe's pulled out. It's not the most delicious of phone calls to give to someone, if you had sense, you'd tell them to swivel, you'd tell them to fuck off. For me, Eddie Howe is very difficult to follow up on now for a lot of fans, and that includes myself, and I imagine that includes you, Callum. How do you follow up what was meant to be an amazing appointment like Eddie Howe? There are very few realistic candidates, and even the 3 names that I'm about to suggest here, they don't seem realistic to me. I don't see Celtic reaching out and making those calls. First off, Lucien Favre just finished at Borussia Dortmund, of course, over the past year. He was sacked in, I think it was December or January. Edin Terzic came in and saved their season a little bit. So people will lead you to believe that Lucien Favre is not a good manager because of the season he's just had there with Borussia Dortmund. But let's not get things mixed up. He's still a very talented manager, has had very successful reigns at the likes of Nice in France. Borussia Dortmund came in and revitalised a very struggling Borussia Dortmund side. He followed up on the likes of Peter Bush and Peter Stuger, who really kind of damaged a lot of what was there at Dortmund. He saved them and also made key signings. He had great recruitment there. Signing the likes of Hazard, he brought in the likes of Julian Brandt, he brought in Erling Haaland. Very good manager with a very good eye for football. Do you want to?
Let's just come off this. You're 820 viewers and a live show is the most we've ever had by a country mile. I think the most we had, Ryan, was an F1 one when we got about 400. So this is wild. Anyone who's new, drop us a sub. We will do more content over the summer that isn't just Eddie Howe based, I promise. But again, you get to see Ryan greeting all the time, so it's great value for money. And a few super chats coming in. £1.99 from Planet Celtic. Got a strange feeling it's going to be Kennedy. Now listen, the cynic inside every Celtic fan will probably think the same. David Hunter, that's the whole thing, knackered. And David, you're absolutely right. It is. Kieran Auld couldn't be with us today because he's currently in mourning the loss of Edward Howe. But £1.99 from Kieran, spot on. That's him making up for the fact he didn't come in for the stream. And just finally, before I come back to you, DJY, rumour has it Desmond has Caixinha on speed dial. Now, Callum, Pedro Caixinha, great service to Celtic in his time.
I was, but for
Brother Pedro,
all the wrong reasons on our side of the city, I definitely wouldn't fancy him, obviously, for us. I know, obviously, it's not a serious shout from the donator, but I think it's just... See, at this point, it wouldn't even surprise me if somebody chucked his name into the shout. It wouldn't even surprise me. People just chuck names. There was another one as well, so it was one of the comments I was trying to use through it. Gareth Thompson, I think it was, said I look raging. I've been up since 5:30 this morning. I am fucked.
Yeah. Look, Lucien Favre, first of all, these are the three names. I'll give these three names just now. So Lucien Favre, he would be my top choice. If you could go for anybody, it has to be him. Bit older, experienced though, knows the game, winner. I would like him. I say winner, but people go, oh, what's he won? All the rest of it. He's got a really good mind for football. Defensively, a little bit to be desired, a lot would say, which maybe isn't what Celtic are looking for, but he would be my top shout. Second, Diego Martinez. Granada manager, just resigned today after 3 years of service. He took Granada from the Segunda division into the La Liga for the first ever time, and then his first ever time in La Liga, he got them a 7th place finish and into the Europa League. In his first season there, this season, tailed off a little bit, finished 9th, but a dramatically successful stint for him at Granada. He's upped his name in the game quite a fair bit, so he would be number 2. And number 3 for me, I brought him up earlier when talking about Borussia Dortmund, it would be Peter Bush. Peter Bush, who's former Leverkusen manager. Everybody knows what Bush ball is. He was very successful as manager of Ajax as well, of course, got them to the Europa League final against Manchester United before moving on to Dortmund, where things didn't quite work out. Those 3 guys are the only 3 to me that would suggest an appointment that gets me as excited as an Eddie Howe. And even at that, I'm still going to feel slightly aggrieved towards not getting Howe.
I think I speak for everyone that talks Scottish football and everyone in the Scottish football YouTube community when we don't want it to be a German manager, so we don't have to hear your daft pronunciations for our next season. But I think you'll find Lucien Favre is actually Swiss.
Oh,
so, well, Swiss plus. But also, I'm just going to make a point to you to yous are so fucking lucky Jack Ross didn't win the Scottish Cup. That's all I'm going to say, Callum.
Massively, I think.
Peter Law would have been in the fucking showers.
Oh, definitely. I'm sure McGinley said at a point as well, and if I'm convinced he's just got a season ticket for these shovels, or just locked through.
I'm surprised Callum Davidson hasn't been tapped up yet.
I've seen him come out a good few things in the comments, to be fair.
It is going to be mad. I genuinely worry that we're going to hear about. I know this advanced talk stuff is what's been said. I'm not buying that. I don't trust the Celtic board enough, and I don't think the Celtic board deserve the credit to say that they've saw this coming unless they'd known for ages. But I thought what Callum said interesting earlier was that they were wording it as the new manager. Obviously, the intimation, like if it's going to be someone like a Roy Keane or someone like that, they're not going to work with a director of football. You wouldn't have thought. And it's very noticeable in football these days when teams use the phrase head coach or they use the phrase manager. I really don't know what's going to happen. I just hope to God it doesn't drag on and drag on and drag on. But what I will say is, coming back to a more general view of where Celtic are at just now, we said when Rangers were shit and when Rangers were, doing awful in the top flight, the problems were not just on the pitch, it was off the pitch. Everything, stuff like, I remember the Rangers team sheets used to get leaked days in advance. every bit of news from inside the dressing room got out. The communication with supporters was dreadful. And Celtic were the polar opposite of that. They were just squeaky clean. Everyone knew what they were doing. It was a well-oiled machine from top to bottom. And, people at that point, yes, he didn't back Rodgers with the money that he should have done. But in terms of the way they did things publicly, it was a lot better. Now we're in a situation where it's complete role reversal, Ryan. Rangers now, on and off the park, well-oiled machine. We're very rarely seeing much out of Rangers now that isn't, what the fans want to see. They're kind of united as one, and it's mental how quickly it's flipped.
Yeah, and that goes for every aspect of the club, not just to who we appoint as a manager and who we sign. It runs up and down the whole place, and today highlights that to an extreme sort of effect. This is really the culmination, and I feel, do you know what, I say it's the culmination, but I feel like I say that with every major disaster that goes on in the Celtic boardroom. But today it feels like the culmination of a series of events that shows that this Celtic board are not fit for purpose, that they are past it, and they are out of touch. You look at the front runner now for the Celtic job. I don't know how reliable it is. I don't know how reliable they're talking about, and I am so sorry if I butcher the pronunciation.
Oh, my Australian guy.
Ange Postecoglou, right? I don't know if that's how it's pronounced. I have no clue. Might be, might not be. I, for one, have never heard of him. I mean, no disrespect. I had someone come in the stream earlier, and say, he was very successful in Australia, good coach, I think in Japan as well, and I think he was the Australian national team head coach at a point too. He's been decent and he looks a good coach, but I'm sorry, and I know that I try and urge Celtic to be ambitious, and I try and urge Celtic to be a bit different, but the Celtic
it's a bit of a gamble, isn't it?
The Celtic board cannot be as clueless to go out their way and appoint. I just can't accept it, really. I just can't.
For me, there isn't a safe but still good enough that the fans won't go mad option out there. For me, there's no in between with what you're hearing. You either go with something dead safe like John Kennedy and everyone will be raging. You go with someone like Roy Keane, everyone will be raging. There's nothing in between. There isn't a sensible option for me out there that screams to mind. So now the question is, as Celtic supporters, do you trust that the board have gone, right, we still need to ambitious, or have the board gone, right, we'll go and get somebody in that we can control, somebody that if we have to sack him in 6 months' time, it isn't going to cause too much of a problem. Now, if they did go and get John Kennedy in, if they have to sack John Kennedy at Christmas, it's not exactly going to be a massive payoff. They can go again. There is genuinely a real lack of quality, realistic candidates out there. And this is why, and this is something I was going to say earlier, they've obviously briefed Stephen McGowan or wherever he's got his source from that they're in advanced talks with somebody. Is that a smokescreen? Is that to say, listen, everyone calm down? Is that to stop everyone going mad? Because maybe they are back to square one.
I would say so. I wouldn't fully believe that Celtic are being honest with that statement. I would have reason to believe that if they were so certain it was going to be Howe, why were there other conversations going on? I know that you want to be secure and maybe have something there in case someone goes wrong, but I just feel like, why would they string someone along to say, oh, we want to keep you as a backup here? And if they were doing that, to me, it screams someone right at the bottom of the barrel. Because I don't see many top managers accepting being a second fiddle to Eddie Howe in case something went wrong. So to me, it does maybe scream out the likes of this Australian manager. Maybe it does. I see Ryan in the chat there suggesting maybe, and I have to bless myself as I say, Nuno Espirito Santo. I see his name getting brought up. Realistic? I don't know. I like the thought of maybe trying to go and get Christophe Gaultier. Realistic? No, looks as though he's off to Nice. There's not a lot of realistic names out there.
Yeah, it's absolutely mental. Callum, just Steve Clark was mentioned in the chat by a few people there. Some people said after the Euros it'll be Steve Clark. Ian Maxwell came out from the SFA and said that Steve Clark was set to stay. I suppose, Ryan, what I said earlier, and I'll get your thoughts on this, Callum, what I was saying earlier about a sensible but reputable option, he is probably the only one that I would say falls into that category. Now, I don't think a lot of fans would be happy with that, but it's a darn sight better than going with John Kennedy or Jack Ross, Callum.
Oh, definitely. I think it's like the point I made when we done the award show. It was like when Tommy Wright was at St Johnstone, it was always the safe bet for them. He was always that one that would get them the results. Like that, as you're saying, Steve Clark, he plays a kind of football that just comes in, just takes the easy results. He'll come in and get you your 1-0, your 2-1s, your simple wins. It won't be pretty football, even like we've seen with the national team. It won't be pretty football at all, but he'll get you the results. That's the only reason I could see, as ever was saying, if they play the safe option. If not Kennedy, then it would be Clark, I'd imagine, if they're going the safe option.
Watch Paul Lambert be fucking pulling a plunger this whole
You see
time.
him on Sky Sports?
No,
he was going on Sky Sports about how the board will definitely have a plan in place because Celtic's too big a club not to. Like, he was just giving the board far too much credit. It was just mental.
Well, that's what happens when you get the old pals of the club to speak. You know, we've seen it happen countless times. It's nothing new. It's certainly not it's a surprise to me. But I wouldn't be surprised if somehow it came out that he has a job after saying for months he's not interested. It just would be the summary of everything that's went wrong.
953 people in here, absolutely mental. We are 50 away from 1,000. That would be just amazing for us. Again, I can't reiterate enough how much a sub would mean to all of us ahead of. There are a number of other people on this channel as well, not just upset Celtic fans. You know, we've seen Devon and Jack in the comments. They've been very happy recently. I know that we'll get their thoughts on this all at the start of next week, but we'll also be getting into the Euros content ahead of the next month. But now, I know I said earlier I can't quite get your questions, but start getting some questions fired into the chat. I will try and get through them.
Somehow I would love, and you know me at the start when all this happened, I was like, get fucking Graham Potter. Just throw the money at Potter. Get him in. Honestly, if I had the control, or if I could walk over, well, no Farfie, of course. If I could walk over to Celtic Park right now, I'd be at that fucking dressing room and tell them, right, just throw all the money in Potter. Get it done.
Is Peter Lawwell just sitting in the dressing room, like that's where he hangs out?
Aye, of course.
There's not been a match at Parkhead for a week.
That's how Neil Lennon got the job, eh?
Because who was it? I saw somebody in open goal say there was a story where there was used to be a bottle of whiskey in the dressing room at Parkhead. I'm sure that was a story. Maybe Peter Lawwell's is in there drowning in his sorrows. I mean, there's probably a decent chance of that.
Well, it probably will be tonight.
But no doubt we'll see all the usual faces in the media, you know, coming out trying to calm the fans. You know, your Suttons, your McNamara's, your all that crowd. But again, it's just the one thing Eddie Howe would have done, and I said earlier, it would have been at this point, it would have been relief for him, and it would have been underwhelming. He would have started to unite the fans again, because again, you've all of a sudden got one manager that everyone can get behind. And listen, it makes a world of difference. I mentioned earlier about Rangers stuff off the pitch being a shambles. Getting a manager they could all get behind helps, because I don't care what's wrong at your football club. The manager of the team is the most important figure at the club. I don't care how many players you've got, who your CEO is. If you've got a manager there, he can inspire the fans, the players, the board, everyone. And if you can get someone you're all behind, it makes the world a difference. Now, I can't see a world now, no matter who Celtic appoint, they will not find somebody to unite the fans. If they go to appoint someone like a Favre, you will have sections of the Celtic support that think that is a shit appointment, because they will not know who he is. They won't understand why he's been brought in. They'll want a Steve Clarke. They'll want a Roy Keane.
He's definitely he's a football hipster option. That's what he is, and I'll gladly hold my hands up in the air and call myself a football hipster if I need to. But he's certainly one of those. He's not going to appease the older Celtic support who have never heard of him, who have never seen him. He's not managed in England. He's not managed in Scotland. They don't know who he is. For all of the younger support, and as I must say, the football hipsters, that would be an appointment that I think maybe not as much as Howe would satisfy them. But it's not that I don't see a universally happy option. One that satisfies every single set. And see, to be honest, to an extent, Howe wasn't that either. Howe wasn't someone who there was plenty. Close
as though, I think.
It was the closest thing I think that we could honestly get. But now you're looking at two sides of the support. You're looking at one half who would like a Steve Clarke, and you're looking at one half that would like a Diego Martinez.
Even that half that you're talking about, that I think you two are in, and a lot of particularly young fans are in, even you lot will not be united behind one man. You'll be happy if it's maybe one of three or four. But before, it was everyone wanted Eddie Howe.
It was Howe, yep, of course, absolutely. I mean, Frank Lampard's name's coming up a lot now.
Risk again, though.
It's a risk again. It's very much putting your eggs in the basket of hope and probably youth. You know, I don't think Lampard comes in with the. I don't know. I don't fancy Lampard too much. I don't see a lot of great options, and that's the worst part. You know, when you looked at this situation in November, if we settled it then, we had so much room for work and there was options. We could have got things over and done with, but no, we hung on and we gave Lennon chance after chance after chance, and it's led us here. Andre Villas-Boas, another good name, I'd say.
Again, though, but I mean, the money his wages, you'd imagine, will be astronomical. No, Callum? Callum, he's been at some big clubs. For Celtic to attract him would be, at this stage, now an impossible, I would have thought.
I think it would take something drastic, I think, to sort of draw in the likes of Villa Boas now. Especially as you said, the money was on as well. Like it would be a massive cut for him to come down. I think as he shouts at Lampard, I feel Lampard would be like the way Rangers done it with Gerrard. That would need to be like a progressional thing. You let him come in, he's into it. Well, he's not got that chance at Celtic. After the season that we've just had, he wouldn't have the chance to come in and sort of have those he wouldn't have that 3-year plan to be able to plan it out.
I don't sully myself with absolute morons in the comments, right? But someone has put in a comment saying, suppose I shouldn't expect high IQ from Celtic supporters. The guy's name is Google or Pedos. So I would just like him to have an evaluation of himself. And then he's also went on to say the NHS are going to sell off your confidential medical information. So let's just calm down and we'll do the football.
Yeah, you stick to the NHS and we'll do the game. Charlie Nicholas, he'd be a great manager. No, listen.
Yeah, a lot of people have forgot here. I know we're just shouting out every Tom, Dick and Harry at this rate. Literally, that is what we're doing. We're throwing out names left, right, etc. But one guy who's been forgotten about, who was the one that we were ranting and raving about for quite a while, not on one but two occasions, Rafa Benitez.
Yeah, I still, as far as I'm aware, he's still without a job. He hasn't. Yep. Am I right in saying that? I think I'm right in saying that. Still without a job.
Because all the talk was that he was going to go to Newcastle again.
Yeah, and Steve Bruce pulled it out of the bag and started.
And then Steve Bruce pulled it out of the bag, and also the club doesn't look as though it's any closer to being sold. So that seems to be on hold.
There was an interesting comment earlier when we were talking about the difference, how Celtic and Rangers have sort of switched spaces, and somebody had said that now Celtic as well have stopped speaking to the BBC, which is obviously something that Rangers did when they were going through all their off-the-field troubles. But, oh, dearie me, Rangers fans will be absolutely licking their lips because, yet again, even in the off-season of Steven Gerrard winning the 55th title, and they're all 55, they're all in dreamland, and it's amazing. Yet again, post-season, we are talking about Celtic in a negative sense. And even when somebody gets appointed throughout the summer, there'll be transfer players linked. They won't get them. There'll be negativity. It will take a long time for us to all be talking about Celtic in a positive sense. And again, this just suits Steven Gerrard and Rangers down to the ground, Ryan.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the worst parts of it. The fact that we are now allowing at a stage where we should be trying our best to get back to challenging and trying our best to establish ourselves as the top team. I'm not saying that is where we are or where we should be at this moment, but when you're trying to strive for that, which is ultimately what Celtic have to do. That's not just me being a cocky Celtic fan. Ultimately, Celtic's aim is to be the top team in Scotland. That is it. That is the aim. Above all, Celtic have got to be the best and the top team in Scotland. And if they don't do that, they should be striving towards it. So when we're at a point post-season, when you should be trying to put all the negativity behind you, trying to get all the bad PR out of the way, and you're constantly getting more, and you're allowing for more importantly, because that's what the club are doing, it is allowing...
Sorry, Ryan, I'm going to interrupt you because I've just received an interesting text. Now, Ryan, you'll know because I sent you the voice note this morning. I don't know if you didn't hear it, but I was sent an interesting voice note by somebody. I'll be watching, a mate of mine. I'm not going to name drop him because he might not want me to name drop him. That was where the indication was that Howe wasn't going to get the job. Now, he has also just messaged me just now and said that the same source that told him that this morning is saying that Celtic may announce their new manager tonight. Now, that would be utterly bizarre, you would have thought.
Oh, no, but don't say that.
Again, I said it was all bullshit to him this morning when he said that Eddie Howe wasn't coming. So, and also, we've just had 1,000 viewers, by the way. We've got 1,000 live viewers. This is unbelievable.
Can I break that story?
Well, listen, it might be nonsense, but if he's watching, I'm giving you the credit. Yeah, 1,000 viewers. Anybody new? Drop us a sub, boys.
Well, look, listen.
16 viewers, unbelievable.
Can I just say, very quickly, that Celtic are single-handedly going to drive me back onto the snout tonight. I'm going to back spot that. Honestly, they've got me on the strings here. They're pushing me. If it's tonight, I would be absolutely stunned. But what I am hoping for tonight is an indication somehow of who this candidate may be. That's all I'm asking for. That's all I want. I don't care if it's official. I don't care what. I want a Stephen McGowan. I want a Keith Jackson. I want a reputable journalist to come out with who it actually could be. Who is this other candidate that we're in advanced talks with? Surely it's only a matter of time before that information is leaked to us.
Yeah. You'd imagine... but then here's my thing, though. Do Celtic go down the route of briefing the press again? Because it's just come back to bite them in the arse. You know, I know Dominic Mackay is in there and he's having a say. There isn't. I refuse to believe he's leading this whole process. I refuse to believe that Peter Lawwell is taking a back seat. I'm not having that. Not until he has to. Which is so. Whether or not, listen, that is an outside shout. I would be very doubtful, but it is what it is. But we £5 donation from Lewis Laird, the man, the myth, the legend. We £5 for the top coverage as always, lads. Also, I'm on the Colts next season. I'm just going to make a guess here that Lewis Laird is going to be a full-time Celtic Colts fan next season because the first team keep letting him down too much, and he gets to watch his lone players play for Celtic. So, the Colts thing will be good for Lewis and his content he produces. Any Celtic fan that's in, go and check Lewis on Twitter. Just search Lewis Laird on Twitter.
Absolutely.
All the news you want to know on Celtic's young players and youth coming through. He is your man for that. We've been here for almost an hour now, and the views keep rising, which is mental. This news is just, it's the biggest sort of breaking news story we've had in Scottish football for a while. Mental, Callum. I don't know where. I don't even know where to go with this next. There's still so much to be said. You know,
this is the kind of show where I wish we could just now get the call in going. Like we're now going to we've got William from Larkhall coming on. William, how you doing? You know, that's what I'm waiting for.
You just hear a flute or something in the background.
I just want to be able to hear a lot of the people like giving their opinions on this and giving their stick to me, while also giving ridiculous suggestions as well.
If there is any Rangers fan in here, that I doubt we'll find one that'll come out and say it. But is there any Rangers fans in here that are happy Eddie Howe isn't going to Celtic because he thought he would be a good? Well,
this is the like. I'm not going to come out and.
There will be Rangers fans like that who will be happy because he would have been a great appointment.
I want to. There was a lot of Rangers fans, and I'm not going to name drop anybody in particular. It's not like I keep it in a red book who said what. I'm not that fucking sad. Literally couldn't give a shit. But there was a lot of Rangers fans who were giving it the whole, oh, Eddie Howe, ha 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 ha, oh, appoint Eddie Howe. It's going to be so funny because he's not that great. And now they're all like laughing that he's not getting the job. Like, did you want him at Celtic or not? Make up your mind. Like
this is so funny for me to see because there is a large section of both support that anytime Rangers did anything where they were pish, Celtic fans would absolutely piss
absolutely. There's plenty of fans like ourselves who, us three on screen, I think, you know, we all have a laugh and a giggle whenever the time is right. Credit to everybody who is level-headed and can admit when a decision is good or bad or whatnot, because fuck me, there's so many roasters that come on and come off and social media time and time again with awful takes. And I know I've been clipped this season. I know I've been clipped this season.
A roaster on social media with awful takes. Hashtag only Barisic. I want to see it in the chat.
Obviously, that was an awful take, but yeah, that was my first in 5 years, so I'll take it.
Aye, well, yeah.
That'll be clipped now.
That will be clipped, and rightly so. But we love it.
There's one that one on Twitter the day that was like searching up everybody's. You know, these are the. I'm not talking about people who give opinions of what's happening on and off, on the park. I mean, like off the park stuff. You get that guy today who's literally going onto Twitter and searching Eddie Howe just to give a retweet on everything and get an opinion, and then it's the same kind of people who can't reply. Like they have to quote retweet to reply. They can't reply. They don't know how to reply. It's those sort of people that annoy me. I'm not so much talking about people who give like an opinion that ends up backfiring. I'm talking about people who just generally can't function.
Now, some David in the chat, I don't know, is saying that Rahman is saying that it's John Kennedy. Now, I'm just going to quickly check Twitter and hope that that's nonsense for your sake, because otherwise there'll be a rant even more.
Is this stream just going to be the?
It's never ending. This is 24 hours.
The cycle of my emotions. The cycle of my emotions. Is that what that's going to be?
I'm nobody else is saying it in the chat, and I can't see it on Twitter. But
I'd fancy giving the job to Fran Alonso.
I
know you're laughing at. I honestly would. I'd give it to Fran Alonso if he's better than a lot of the options out there.
I know Rahman has tweeted that he is in the Celtic Iron talks the preferred candidate. So I don't know if that's just him passing on Steve McGowan stuff, but it's very, very interesting. Just quickly, and I know this is not what you are going to want to talk about, but I'm going to bring it to you and on this, Cal. This time a year ago, Celtic had wrapped up 9 in a row, heading for 10. They'd finished the previous season flying, Edward flying, Griffiths flying, goals. They looked great. Rangers were in an absolute shit show. They had to have their fans giving a minute's applause for Steven Gerrard to show solidarity before they got beat off Hamilton at Ibrox. Could you in any world foresee that we would be in this position a year later with everything that's happened?
Nah, I don't think. I don't think even Mystic Meg and a crystal ball, I think would have predicted it would have went this badly in the way it did. I think it goes back to when Rangers put the tweet with Scott Arfield, where they can't wait for next season.
Yeah.
And also we've seen what happened following that.
This is worse. It's a lot worse.
Massively. But I think it's just, as you've said, no one could have predicted the way it went. Like, it was just so out of nowhere. Like, they started the season a bit slow, granted, like, right, maybe it's just sort of, you get to start the season, you ease yourself into it. And again, it was just they just kept snowballing.
Yeah, it's mental, Ryan.
Look, you say you couldn't have pictured John McCauley. Ryan needs to let others speak. I'm not even fucking hosting it today.
Before you do speak here, though, because I think I know what you're going to go on to, but I'm gonna aid your point. Is there any way realistically this could have gone any worse? Like, realistically, what else could have gone worse? Very quickly before I answer that question, who would have thought would have been here when we Laxalt was giving it Eddie Howe's turning up the morning on Twitch? I just remember about that. No, like, it couldn't. No, I say literally. I think you can go back to the last podcast when we sat down. Callum, you weren't on, obviously. It was just me, McGinley, and Kieran on the Celtic Defender. And one of our awards was Worst PR Disaster of the Year. All three of us, every single one of us said, all of these will pale in comparison if Eddie Howe doesn't take the Celtic job. Yeah. It's happened. Mm-hmm. It couldn't have been any worse. It's happened in the worst manner. See if it happened all give and take in a week. If on a Monday morning, Eddie Howe could be getting the Celtic job. Friday morning, Eddie Howe is not getting the Celtic job. If that happened, fair enough. That's fine. On April the 1st, it was reported that Eddie Howe was set to take the Celtic job. I should have fucking known it when it was April the 1st, right? But by the way, at that point, it had already been rumoured for a couple of months before that. Yeah, exactly. So it's happened in the worst fashion possible. Like, it couldn't have been any worse. It really probably couldn't have been. There's a couple of questions coming in about other things in Scottish football. That will be probably for another show. But I genuinely don't even know where to take this from here. Can you, in your hand, in your heart of hearts, both of you, can either of you see Celtic win the league title next season? At this current moment in time? Yeah. No. And that will be the first time you've probably said that, probably in your life. First time I have said that ever. In your time supporting Celtic? Yeah. Ever. I have supported Celtic, obviously, since I was born, but proper enjoying and understanding football, probably since I was about 8-year-old. Mm-hmm. And every single season I've went into it going, well, we can win the league. Maybe not well. I'd be a bit naive to say maybe the year after Mowbray when Lennon first came in, but at least there was a bit of belief. We had Lenny, already. I know, back when he was, a desirable appointment. Yeah, of course. It is mad, Callum. Not even the most diehard Celtic must be looking at us and thinking, God, we're in trouble. I'd like to think so. I mean, it's, as you asked Ryan the question, I don't see us win it next season at this moment in time again. It's going to take something massive, I think, for it to have been won back next season. I think, as I've said it before, and I've said it on here, this is going on as in terms of a rebuild. It's going to take that bit of time. It wouldn't just be like a one season, right, bang, the title was back. It'll be a gradual process, I think. Keir Starmer's in the chat, Ryan, saying that you started the Eddie Howe rumours. Keir Starmer? Well, Keir S is what I'm assuming. Keir Starmer doesn't do fuck all else, so you might as well go just you away and put your blue tie on, Keir. Yeah, you started the Tory. Of course, I was the one that started the Howe rumour. Single-handedly, yeah, that was me. You're getting far too much credit for your influence on anything, really. Imagine, you'd be buzzing off that, wouldn't you, if people generally thought you started it? Oh, mate, if people thought that I was that credible, I would be number one stunned, but number two honoured if they thought I was that credible. Let's just calm down, though. What is going to happen, Callum, if Eddie Howe is cutting about Glasgow just for a day out with his wife or someone next year? He's not going to be greeted with very happy people, is he? Oh, I mean, it depends what side of the city you support, really, innit? Aye, you watch. If Gerrard leaves, he'll be rumoured to be the next Rangers manager. Honestly. He'll be a hero to the left. And I think it's one of those ones that would be certainly a very weird atmosphere for him if he was to be pictured up here at any point, not linked with any team. Liam Campbell, a £5 super chat. Top man Liam. He said, Ryan, what I'd do is live stream SSP for a laugh because that's what I'm here for. I'm expecting our viewers to drop dramatically in about 2 minutes' time when Super Scoreboard starts.
It's not the same without Gordon, though, is it? It's not the
Gordon
same.
not there?
No, he's got a couple of weeks off till the Euros start. He's got a couple of weeks off.
Fair play to him. Very handsome fella.
Handsome man.
Yeah, very good.
This isn't top Scottish football anymore.
No, this is the stage it's come to after an hour of talking about Eddie Howe, and he's not even getting the job. I wonder how many cumulative hours, Ryan, you've spent talking about Eddie Howe.
I'd probably round it to 10.
A day.
Look, a day. Look, I know it's bizarre. Like, that's the thing. It's like, obviously you can go back and get all these clips of me saying, "Oh, Eddie Howe this, Eddie Howe that." But as I said halfway through the show when I was on, I've always said it with the wiggle room to suggest it wasn't going to happen. There was always the possibility that this would fall apart. Like, maybe behind the scenes, David, I've said things to you that would suggest I was 100% confident he'd be through the door. But on YouTube, I've made a valiant effort. I've made a valiant effort to kind of throw in the fact that it could go wrong and that it's all but the reports. We could only take what we're given. You know, we were led to believe that it was going to be finished, it was going to be done. But some things just don't work out, and that's what's happened.
Just like to thank Joe Aribo for the £2 super chat. Obviously, Joe is probably on his holidays, but he's tuning at GSF, which is good. He said, "Announce Kennedy." I'm guessing every Rangers fan would be delighted. Also another super chat here, £1 super chat from Cameron Killas RFC, who's no doubt a Rangers fan enjoying this today. Callum, what do you think would go down worse, John Kennedy or Roy Keane?
For me, I think Kennedy, because you're going to get that older section of the support that would love the Keane. They would love Keane to come in and have that job. Whereas also you look at, as was like Ryan said, the football hipsters, the younger generation, they don't want that at all. We don't want either of the two. But you know for a fact, if it was Kennedy, then you know for a fact it's tits up galore everywhere. Yeah. It's just not going to work.
Tits up galore everywhere. Sounds like Ryan's weekend last weekend. Sure, Ryan.
Well, how was that?
It's giving you a bit of credit there. I don't know if you
I thought it was sounding Melly's birthday message for a certain person.
Oh, yes. Announce it.
Birthday message?
We video birthday message. You got
right.
If anybody in the chat can guess who Ryan's birthday message was from, you know, if you put your mind to it, you'll be able to guess pretty easily. But
it's pretty simple.
What was just discussed there. Anyway, before we're going to round off in the next sort of 10 minutes or so, take any questions in the chat. We'll branch this out to more general Scottish football stuff as well since we're here. We'll talk about other things as well, as you said, Eddie Howe. So any questions on anything Scottish football related, we'll take them just now. So
I guess we better ask the question on everybody's mind. Eddie Howe collapsing, what do you think?
Listen, I think we should start talking now. An hour and 7 minutes talking about Eddie Howe. Mental. I'm going to do, just for anybody who does care, I was at the Peter Grant press conference.
Do you think, here's a genuine question. Can I ask a genuine question here? Do you think Eddie Howe will go down in history as the most spoke about person in Scottish football that was never in Scottish football?
Wow.
Do you think he will? That's a good question, isn't it?
Yes.
I can't think of any others.
They didn't make it up here. The
most spoke about person in Scottish football history that never actually made it to Scottish football.
It's a shirt.
Surely him. Maybe if you go back years, there might be someone in there, but he dominated the media for literally 2-3 months, and he didn't arrive. Like, that is crazy. He must be in that conversation anyway. I can't find. Maybe the chat will have someone that I've not given a shout to, but you know, he proper. You know, you'd think he was the Celtic manager. The amount he was spoke about.
Absolutely. Right, let's move on. A couple of questions from other people. Hibs Casual 1875. Why are Hibs so shite? Finished third. Decent for Hibs. But yeah, speaking of, I've said this a lot throughout the whole of the. I'm starting to use this phrase COVID era because that's what I'm thinking of the last 18 months as, because it overlaps 2 seasons. But most clubs have been unhappy with their manager. I think there's been a high proportion of clubs fans that have been unhappy with their manager, and Hibs fans are certainly one. I saw a poll, Callum, from Hibs fans wanting Jack Ross gone. Some of them, which is mental for a Hibs manager that finished third. But again, he's going to have a big summer ahead in terms of recruitment and keeping hold of some of his big players.
Definitely. I think. See if I was a Hibs fan, you turn around and you finish third, I'd be fucking more than delighted with that. In fact, they made it to a semi-final and a cup final as well. You're looking at that, and first proper season, you're looking like, do you know what? Fair play. You need to accept that, because I said it's one of the ones. If he's given the time and the budget, he'll be able to build on that and be able to take them further.
Ryan, I'm not going to ask you about Hibs, actually. You've got too much in your mind. What other questions have we got in here? A wee bit on Peter Grant. Since we're not a Celtic fan, so I was at the press conference this morning. I wasn't very enthused by the appointment, but I thought he spoke very, very well. A couple of questions in with him, thought he was really good. I'm going to do a video on that where you'll hear from Peter Grant on the video as well. And get more of my thoughts on that in another video. A few questions, people asking, can anyone convince Edouard to stay? Now, I thought there might have been a tiny chance Eddie Howe could. I would say there's no chance of that happening now. And Ryan, you made a good point that the thing he put out on his Instagram the other day was pretty much for the club. The whole season.
Yeah, I wouldn't read into it. There's too many people sharing that, like, oh, he's staying. He's peace.
Cam McFarlane, Cammy's been about a lot recently. I have to say, fair play to him, because his team's just been relegated and he's still coming out in the comments. He's still contributing. Fair play. We like that. Stepping up, facing the music. David Kelly just saying Kieran McDonald and Daniel Armstrong from Wraith Rovers. I went to the announcement. What's your thoughts? Kieran McDonald, great left back, but he was only part-time at Wraith last season, and he was the only part-time player at Wraith. Daniel Armstrong is a good tricky winner, good players for the Championship, young players, decent signings. This type of signings Kelly will need to make. There's a super chat here from R97 Connor. If you I've got the wrong thing. If you had to think of one name that Celtic can talk to right now to the manager, who do you think it'll be? So that's interesting. So we've said names that you would like, Ryan, and stuff. Who do you think Celtic would have sounded out as alternatives? Who do you think Peter Lawwell would have sounded out as an alternative?
Roy Keane.
Yeah, that would be the one that comes to mind.
That's the one that.
Aye.
That's what it screams to be.
How long till John Hughes is linked?
How long till Owen Coyle's linked?
Oh, dearie me.
That's a question for you.
And again, a number of names just coming in. You said that earlier. Everyone's shouting at every Tom, Dick, and Harry. But yeah, I'm gonna. I don't even know. Keir Starmer again saying it has to be Keane or Kennedy. Yeah, that's a very Keir Starmer view, that. Unpopular. Neil Morris from the $4.99 Super Chat. No message, Neil. Thank you, top man. Appreciate all the Super Chats. It's going to make the world of difference. We've got a big month coming up here on the channel. Just looking at our WhatsApp chat, Dev's been working on a few things behind the scenes that will be announced, I'm sure, hopefully in the next wee while. Duncan McGregor, who's a regular across TSF and both of our streams, when I stream and when you stream. Alexa play Give It Up by Casey and the Sunshine Band. Great tune. Feel good tune, but it's not a feel good atmosphere for two of the members on this show.
The problem for me when we talk about music is we now need to find a manager that rhymes with Bella Ciao.
Yeah,
that's the issue. I mean, who's out there?
I'm sorry, Keir, mate. I'm sorry. Just couldn't help it. A great comment here from Scott 123. Celtic are pure mints. Yeah, I don't think anyone here would disagree.
He's not wrong.
Heavy mints, man.
Heavy mints, aye. Some fantastic comments coming in now. Adam Smith, many points for Rangers win the league by next season. I'm going to save that question for Dev when I get him on next. I'm not going to even force you two to answer. Mr. Chow, he works with Eddie Howe and Bella Chow. Get Leslie Chow in his manager. There you go.
Mr. Chow.
Yeah, that would work. Another bit of managerial news. Kelly Hart's appointed Kevin Thompson as their new manager, which is an interesting one. They're going with all the Rangers set midfielders.
I was about to say last night I heard that news that Kevin Thompson was going, and my automatic thought was, are they just going through the UEFA Cup team? Like, was Thompson in that?
Yes, he might.
I think it was.
A few injuries at that time, whether he would have played or not.
I don't know if he played, but he was in the squad. I mean, he was in the squad.
I will say I've heard a lot of good things about him as a coach with his youth academy and stuff he's done at Rangers. I've heard a lot of good things. And as I said, when the Barry Ferguson news about him leaving Celtic came out, Callum, it's an attractive job, that, in the same way that Cove Rangers would be as well. They're in the leagues in the bottom, but they're going to spend money and try and make a good fist of it.
Aye. Like I just said, it's about to see with the budget they've got as well. I think it does make it enticing for you to go in from being in the lower leagues to have that bit of cash to spend, or so the other team don't. So it would make it enticing for, like, if it is to be like a manager that's out of job or a young upcoming manager, for him to go in and sort of try his hand at it, I think that'd be quite the feat.
I've been topped. You know how I posed the question earlier? I was like, who's the most talked about man in Scottish football, or man or person to be talked about in Scottish football that hasn't actually been involved in Scottish football?
Yeah.
Well, there's two already, the Pope and the Queen.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
they two are above Eddie.
Did you see Stephen Gerrard's Instagram post yesterday?
No, I didn't know
he was in London and he took his daughter and took a photo with his daughter outside Buckingham Palace. He's just buying into it. And I said this to you when he got appointed. He'll do everything to get the fans on side. He's very much doing that now, and he's just like, he's a god to them Rangers fans, isn't he? He can't do no wrong.
Betraying his roots, if you ask me.
Yeah, maybe. You'd have thought Steven Gerrard, if he was at Buckingham Palace, the Queen would have invited him for a cuppa, I mean, seeing that team doing so well, she'd have been buzzing, no?
Honestly, might get called sooner rather than later, Sir Steven Gerrard.
Yes, yeah, maybe, potentially. Where have we got here? Jordan asking, do you think St Johnstone will qualify for the UEL group stages? So, is there a complete... No, well, listen. Is there 100% clarity on where St Johnstone are going into Europe?
They're going into the Europa League.
The playoff? Am I right thinking it's the playoff round?
Let me double check it. Talk away. I'll go and check.
Because I knew that it was dependent on... I think it might have been dependent on what happened in the final, actually. But I have a funny feeling Man United had to win. Sharp Dib saying the Queen used to play left back for Ireland Athletic. Fair enough. Jordan saying the playoff round for St Johnstone. So,
according to what I'm reading, it's the third qualifying round. But right, I don't know if that's been up. I don't know if that's been updated.
But what I will say, to have 5 teams from Scotland in Europe next season is fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. The game is getting better.
Can we end off the stream with a good talking point?
Yes, let's do that.
What's your thought on the Europa Conference League?
I'm a big fan of it, to be perfectly honest, because again, I've used this sort of analogy a lot recently with the talk about Dunfermline. Is it gives me a realistic aim of my club playing European football, because all it takes is a club to go and win a cup, finish in the top 6, and you've got half a chance for some of these smaller teams, like a St Johnstone, like a St Mirren, Motherwell, teams like that. Chance of them playing European football, I think it's really good. It brings money in. I'm only seeing positives, Callum.
Oh, sorry, Callum. Where do you go?
No, the very same as David. I think it's quite good because I'm saying it gives the smaller teams that chance at Europe. It's not one of those you need to finish top 3 or win one of the big trophies to get in that chance. I like the fact that it lets those lesser teams, like, you've seen it in the Europa League with Dundalk, with an Arsenal. I'm looking like, I'm no respect to Dundalk whatsoever, but I feel if they're in that Conference League, I feel they would be able to show themselves off so much better.
Yeah.
And getting put in a group with likes of Arsenal, such getting drubbings, and then that doesn't give them the sort of the respect to the team they are.
Mm-hmm.
What's annoyed? I'm just going
to do a super chat really quickly.
A lot of people are saying stuff about Benitez.
Is he not listening to me now?
Sorry.
No, I don't think so.
He's just ignoring me now. Super chat from Neil Morrison, $4.99. I'm hosting today, Specs. $4.99 from Neil Morrison. Where will St Johnstone finish in the league next year, considering where Ryan predicted them for this year? Where did you predict St Johnstone? Can you remember, Ryan?
I love how I never got to give my thoughts to the Conference League, but I will answer. St Johnstone finished in the league next year. I predicted them 10th this season.
Yeah, well.
I predicted them 10th. Next season,
I've said 3rd. I'm sticking with it.
3rd, I'll go 4th.
Okay. Ooh, we're big in it. Callum, what your St Johnstone next season?
Yeah. If they keep the players they've got and building what they've got, I think 3rd's a good shout.
But, sorry.
R97 Connor, did you guys hear about Andy Robertson came out and said he would like to finish his career at Celtic? So he did an interview with Peter Martin, I think, for PLZ. Well, it's well known he's a Celtic fan. He got turned away when he was a kid.
Yeah.
Before he had to Queen's Park Dundee United. Listen, I mean, maybe I could see that happening. Maybe
eventually.
Still
got it. I'd take him, I.
Yeah, I worry about Robbo when his legs go, though. If I'm honest,
does it not annoy you? I know this is taking a wee bit for this, but it's just a point I wanted to bring up because we had an English fan in the chat earlier of Burton Albion, of course, who likes to laugh at Scottish football.
Regular in this chat.
Regular in the chat, but a lot of the English entitlement is coming right through with this Conference League, and straight away they're like, oh, these are the stadiums Spurs will be playing, and that's the big one that's been going about with the train passing through the stadium and all that nonsense.
By the way, that would be fucking class to watch a game of football there.
Oh, it would be. So they're all giving it they're all giving it Billy Big Bollocks, like, oh, fucking Conference League, 10 pot this, 10 pot that. I hate to bring German football into everything because I know you guys aren't as big as me. A team like Union Berlin, right? They have just finished 7th in the Bundesliga. They're going to be playing in European football for the first time in their history in the Conference League. The fans are absolutely buzzing. They were fucking crying at full time, basically, when they got into the Conference League. It is huge. It gives them a taste of European football. The fans are getting it. And that's the same in Scotland. If these teams have a chance of actually going to the Conference League, and they'll get to go to European trips and they'll get to do all these things. It's a marvellous experience. I've been fortunate enough to go on a couple of European trips, and now St Johnstone fans, Hibs fans, Aberdeen fans might get a more realistic chance of getting those kind of days out. Brilliant.
Brilliant. Marvellous. Very proud.
Marvellous, very proud.
Apparently, Jerry and Erskine's having a meltdown on the SSB, which is just you can just hear it, can't you? There was another question there that I completely missed now. Lewis Laird said, "We'll need to get the Euros thing done." Duncan Blair laughing at Paul Scholes is quite funny because it just showed the level of punditry we're going to get from the English pundits all summer. The Man United final was just the start of these English pundits making an arse of themselves, and I cannot wait. Cammy referencing the Johnny Sunderland lookalike who does the championship show, but Adam's actually in the chat. Adam's Adam said that he'll still do the championship show next season, but he'll be too big time for that, I would have thought. And Adam's a podcast tour anyway. We're too busy on every podcast.
He's a podcast tour. Have you seen McGinley?
McGinley's worse.
He's out and about, man.
Yeah, he gets himself about. Right, any quick final thoughts in the chat? Hit us with. We're just about to round off. I've been here for an hour and 20 minutes. I think if my notes that I took throughout this are right, we peaked at 1,087 viewers. We're still at 627, which is a lot more than we'd ever had before. Big final shout. Anybody that's here new to the channel, drop us a sub. We'll do a whole host of Scottish football related content, not just Celtic, not just Eddie Howe. Ahead of the Euros, we've got lots of ideas, lots of plans. It's going to be good. We're all going to be united as a nation ahead of the Euros, so it's all going to be good fun. Ryan, any final thoughts?
Liquidate Dunfermline Football Club or Athletic, sorry.
Yeah.
Listen,
that's what I say. I love how my unenthusiasm for Peter Grant is gone just off about one conversation with him and one bit of news that means he might have ruined Celtic's life. And now I love him. Anyway, Cam McFarlane with the best comment of the day. Fantastic. Callum, final thoughts, mate?
Just the same as Ryan. Fuck Dunfermline. That's nice. To say.
Fucking charming.
I always liked Dunfermline. I always
could blame Peter Lawwell, could blame Don Mackay, could blame Dermot Desmond. No, it's little old Dunfermline. Unbelievable. So yeah, hope everyone's enjoyed. We will catch you all later on Monday, I'd imagine, with the show. And